Yeah, Kath Viner and I are doing absolutely nothing at King's Place at the moment. It's a walk in the park. So look, I can't believe it's a year since we last met here. You've taken my first chart, which sort of just brings to life some of the things that happened over the last 12 months. I think one of the most important things, however, is that finally The Guardian chose to choose a woman to be our editor for the first time in 194 years, which is brilliant. She's not here, but at last we saw sense, so that's great. There has been an unbelievable amount of change just in those last 12 months since we sat in this room. As we've already said, the BBC are going through one of the most intense and furious and political reassessments of their cost base and how they are funded. David Abraham the other day very eloquently said that it's the right answer, Channel 4, looking for a problem in relation to the way in which government are treating him. The Independent obviously finally turned off its printing presses. And there are all sorts of restructures in relation to something as independent as the FT being sold to Nikkei, question marks over the Telegraph, who will buy it, etc. Pearson announcing 7,000 job losses, etc. So these are turbulent times. And I think as I go through just a very brief intro for 10 minutes or so, I just want to make it very clear that within The Guardian, one has to face up to those things. I think you could sort of sit there and say, this is all too very difficult and we don't know what we're doing, or you can just embrace this phenomenal moment of digital disruption. We sat around the table the other day with Shane Smith from Vice, who's gone from sort of a magazine in Montreal and Canada to this billion-dollar behemoth. And it's inspiring when you sit with people like that who just look at this disruption and they only can see opportunity. So I think it's really important that legacy organizations, hate the term legacy organizations, do embrace all of this and actually step into what I believe to be a really exciting time. And no more clearly demonstrated by the fact of these two behemoths and what they're actually doing, let alone globally, but certainly in the UK market. The digital market is up, some of those huge numbers of 36, 37% year-on-year change in terms of digital revenue. But when you look at the analysis and you look at the data from the IAB, that's actually leaving about 1.4, 1.5% for everybody else. So all of us are scrapping over a smaller and smaller pie as these two giants suck out a huge amount of digital spend. However, the contradictions of this market, the fact that Facebook and Google are integral to our business. With Facebook, we have been working with them for some time on instant articles about how and where our content should be distributed and how indeed we might be able to monetize it with their first-party data. And that's live at the moment. It'd be interesting to be able to compare relative yield within Facebook versus our own platform. Referral traffic, as their algorithm rightly begins to recognize quality content, means that they're a huge component to our digital reach and something that we like, we enjoy, and obviously, therefore, we're at the top table with Facebook working those things out. Equally with Google, they have got onto the front foot with DNI, the Digital News Initiative, whereby we're sat at the table with some of the biggest media organizations in the world, trying to understand Google's capabilities along with ours to ensure that quality content is recognized. They've also introduced AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages, which again recognizes quality content, particularly in the mobile space. And again, referral traffic is to die for from that space. And so when I was talking the other day at another platform, I was saying you just need to be able to navigate between the disruption that these two organizations give you, but equally the huge benefits, and we need to be able to navigate both. The massive trends in relation to the way money is now being spent, I think we sort of knew it last year, but now we've got some very, very big numbers to see where clients' money and media money is being spent. Video, you just want a lot of it. It's very difficult when you're a quality news brand, when you go to our newsroom and say, could you just give us shed loads of video? Because that's what everyone wants. So we're having to work through that. We were first out the blocks with Guardian Labs, recognizing the desire for branded content and native content, and that's signified by some of these big numbers year on year. Programmatic is everything. And I do believe, however, at last, programmatic is beginning to understand what is quality and what is tonnage. And hopefully, over the next couple of days, probably that will be discussed. And again, mobile, flocking to where obviously our readers and our users are, continues almost to be everything, of which obviously Facebook are benefiting from. One of the things, even in the last 12 months, I think we have recognized is that anonymous reach is great, it's good. It gives you a bloody big number, 148 browsers. That certainly validates the virality of our journalism, but without actually knowing anyone, it's a rather pointless number. And we at The Guardian, as I did most organisations, are trying to understand the conversion of influence around the world, and those big numbers referring to off-platform traffic, etc., and how that translates into a known audience. And to be a data scientist now, that's where you can earn lots of money, and we certainly are beginning to bolster up our digital capability to be able to get far more sophisticated in understanding who people are, both to drive our advertising model, but more importantly, to be able to be far more specific on what content is delivered to what individual. And certainly these capabilities will be the center of our organization alongside, obviously, our content. Mobile, again, another contradiction. It is where the audience is. We all know it. We all are probably now on our phones rather than listening to me. And yet, at the moment, we do not know how to make money from it. We have cluttered up this incredible platform with too much advertising, which is creating ad blockers, which I'll come on to. And yet, we still know, ultimately, the commercial answer is somewhere within mobile. We just haven't quite worked it out yet. So what does this all mean for The Guardian? I was made chief exec alongside Kath 6 months ago. I won't deny it is one of those moments where you go through a bit of turbulence as you get your head around this, but actually these are terribly exciting times and something that we, with Kath and I now at the helm, have begun to really step into, which I'll talk about. So another massive year, I mean these are last year's numbers, in terms of another complete validation of what role this is that we play on the planet and both in the UK. Browsers up by 21%. We're the second fastest growing news website in the US, just behind the Washington Post. Video views, a big number year on year, and that will obviously continue to grow. Massive amounts of traffic from mobile, and obviously the app is also beginning to take hold as well, and there's some bigger numbers which we'll announce later on in the year. And there is this tension that if you start reading about, are news organisations going to exist in the future? What is their role within the digital landscape? And you look to these numbers, and there is still a desperate need and desire for quality news content within the world. And these numbers obviously prove that. And why is that? It's because we tell important, critical stories. Some of these heart-wrenching stories around the refugee crisis. This was one amazing multimedia experience put together by Patrick Kingsley, where he followed the journey of a refugee as they went from Syria across the water, etc. And if you look at it, it is both beautifully put together graphically, but also an unbelievably compelling story. And in addition to that, what we're doing in the States, something called The Counted, which is for the first time we have used data analytics, digital visualization, to create one destination of how many people have been killed by the police. And can you believe there is no one place in the States that collates that massive statistic? And the FBI recently came out and said, we should be doing something that The Guardian's doing. And I'm sure we've got quite a lot of people, but I think the FBI have certainly got more than us in being able to try and work out exactly what's going across the States. This is now winning multiple awards, but 2 examples of the critical role that we play. And so I suppose even with the horrible things that happened yesterday and what happens around the world, seeing Trump continually out of control in the States, it is bizarre that actually in a world where we are under threat, given distribution, given the multiple places one can actually get content, The Guardian's role in the world, as all strong independent news organisations are, has never been more important. But against a backdrop of unbelievable digital disruption, very, very difficult digital economics, and obviously a struggle to understand where the consumer is, or are they ultimately just all on Facebook? And so there is a contradiction between our importance and the challenges that we face. And so we launched our new 3-year plan. We have stated very, very clearly our ambition is to break even in the next 3 years. That obviously we talked about what that might be about reshaping our organisation. There's been some comments about, is that somehow implying something went wrong in the past? No, it is just us simply reshaping our organisation for a more dynamic digital future. That will include membership, which means that we will find ways of monetizing our content with our readers, and we are working through that. Greater and greater video to respond to the market, Branded content with labs. There will be a new version of Guardian Labs soon, which we'll announce, and a huge amount of focus on data to be able to ensure we translate that anonymous reach into a known audience. Now, the challenge, I think, and it's interesting seeing Keith here today, and other very, very senior clients that I see around the world, is the contradiction between quality of context and where advertising is appearing, and the challenge of programmatic about it actually responding to where the individual is or the environment in which the advertising is being served. And again, another real tension point. We have huge amounts of capabilities in advertising, in the ad stack, and the way ads are being served, but at the moment, the context, is it really truly being valued? And what that is resulting in, and this is my interpretation of the cyclical challenge around why we've ended up with an ad blocking challenge, is there's a lack of value around context. Algorithms now prize the individual as opposed to the context, which is driving down the cost of impressions. That puts pressure on the revenues of publishers. We then, not so much us, because we've focused on the environment and the UX for some time, but that does mean publishers then load their ad pages, particularly in mobile, to try and recoup the money of the environments that they've created, which creates a terrible user experience, which then results in ad blocking. And somewhere, and I look at the people in this room, somehow we need to be able to realize that we are all complicit in this cyclical erosion of quality environments, the space that we, the Guardian, others create, and the need for clients to be able to put their ads in trusted environments. And all of us have had a role to play in this, whether it be advertising, which has got graphic-heavy ads, which are slowing down the experience, whether it be mobile networks looking for their slice of the advertising pie. But at the end, there are clients that sit at the top of the pile who want their advertising to go into environments that they trust. And somehow the algorithm is simply not recognizing that. And as a result, we have got ad blocking, which is becoming a serious problem. And we do need to educate the consumer. We are going to be far more tough when we can see an ad blocker being introduced. We've got certain graphics that we are now testing, certain pop-ups we're now testing to say you cannot consume this incredible content without it being paid for. And we're being obviously very clear about that. I think advertising agencies have got to get much clearer about the sorts of ads that they're creating. We need to harness data, but we've got to stop stalking people. And we've got to understand how actually great, fantastic advertising should exist in great environments, which ultimately drive brand value for our clients. This somehow, I believe, has been lost in the process, which we need to correct. So I suppose in summary, we have always respected our readers. We have spent millions of pounds in creating an environment which is both user-friendly regardless of platform. And I'd encourage all of us, whether it be through advertising, whether it be creating new platforms, we focus on the consumer and respect those experiences. We have to understand that mobile, just because they're there, doesn't mean we have to pile in and ruin the experience with terrible advertising or graphics that just literally slow down the experience. And hopefully over time, value context. So thank you for listening and have a good 2 days.